You know who Asking Alexandria is, right? They went from sounding like this
I can't help you through this.
to more recently straying away from that and sounding like this. But we're here to talk about their lead singer Danny Worsnop and his weird solo career path. Now, I know that when an artist is in a band and known for doing that one genre, it seems a little weird when they do decide to do something solo, and it's a lot different from what they do. And I do appreciate artists that do separate their solo stuff from their band, like you're able to tell the difference, or if they have multiple bands, you're able to tell the difference. Kind of like Jack White with the Raconteurs and the White Stripes, or even his solo stuff, to, you know, Corey Taylor and Stone Sour and Slipknot. You can tell the difference. And Danny Worsnop, I'll give him credit where it's due. You can definitely tell the difference between his solo career and any Asking Alexandria song, new and old. But this Danny Worsnop went country before we knew him as the, you know, soft-spoken singer that he turned out to be now, even since returning to Asking Alexandria. That's right, he did a country album, his first album. Now, he has 2 out right now. His first album is titled The Longest Road Home. It was released on February 2017, which has a weird story behind it, because at this point in time he had left Asking Alexandria, did his side project band We Are Harlot to focus more on that, and then he kind of started working on this album alone, and there's clips of Ben Bruce where he definitely does mock this album, calling Danny a country imposter.
You know, what's really annoying about that is I saw that the other day and I was like, one, we just spoke a few days prior, and I feel like on good terms. And what's really annoying about it is artistic integrity. He's an Englishman from England, obviously, Hull, England, singing country music with an American accent. Where's your integrity? Like, what are you talking about?
Saying that it was basically a fake persona, he's just making this country album with a fake country accent. So needless to say, and I still don't know what Ben's opinion on this album is still to this day, but he just didn't seem to really appreciate it all that much. However, Worsnop was already back in Asking Alexandria at this point, and they, you know, started to write new music for their self-titled album, which they would release later that year. So this still dropped, despite him being in the band. Now, since he wasn't in Asking Alexandria, he didn't release this album on Sumerian Records. He released this album on Earache Records, and this was his solo album that I was trying to stay away from, because I had heard 50 Shades of Blue. What the fuck am I saying? It's just called Shades of Blue. And, well, we'll get to that in a minute. I also have a review out of it if you want to watch it up here. But let's look at his first album first. Now, one thing I will give him, as for most country albums, the songs are different from most topics that you would hear in most country stuff about partying and drinking and trucks and all this kind of stuff. He talks about drinking, but he talks about his alcoholic problem, and I know country music stars tend to sing about that too, but there was just something about Danny's versions of his songs where they seem to really come from the heart, and not a lot of country music feels like that anymore. I'm sorry to say, but it's just, how do we make this love anthem go viral now? And that's just not how it should be. Music has to come from the heart. If it doesn't come from the heart, then it doesn't have the opportunity to be any good. He does sing better than most country artists. Now, I did mention, and I did agree with Ben Bruce on some occasions, Danny kind of feels like he's putting on this fake country persona, kind of like on his song Mexico.
I don't know about you, but I'm kind of thirsty. Reckon I've been working just a little too much lately.
But for the most part, when he gets softer and is doing these more acoustic type tracks, he can sing, and he shows it off now more than he did on Asking Alexandria, in my opinion, before, his last two albums at least, including From Death to Destiny for them, where he kind of toned down on the metalcore vocals to do a little bit more like raspier, clean vocals. It is what it is with that. And yeah, most country artists just do the same vocal tone over and over again to where it's hard to tell them apart, but you can definitely tell this is Danny. Even when he does the imposter country, as I like to call it, he definitely has that difference in his vocals. Listening through, I didn't really think I would really like anything off of this album, but the kickoff and the finisher were actually my two favorites on this thing. Prozac does a nice little job. This is one of the ones where it's more acoustic-wise, so the country doesn't necessarily pop out, but the twang is still there. And the Man has kind of more of that old-timey, just at a bar, just playing guitar with your band and whatnot feel. It's a nice little sing-along. Even songs like Anyone But Me, High, and Don't Overdrink It were fine too. Some of them had nice intensity. But I found songs like Mexico and I Feel Like Shit just to be too... Like, this was him delving into trying to be too country for his own liking. First of all, you made a country song called Mexico. If we know anything about most country music singers, they love America, they're for America, and nothing else. That's just how it goes. Plus, it's just so cliche. I'm gonna, drive my car down to Mexico with all these hot girls and just have a fun time. And that's the big turnoff, because a lot of times we call that bro country, and it's one of the worst genres ever created. And I Feel Like Shit is basically just him complaining about how he felt around this time trying to, get over his addiction. And I mean, it sucks for everybody. Of course you're gonna feel like shit. So, I ended up looking back and giving this album a 3 out of 10. It's not great, by all means. It's not even that good, but it does have its high moments that I think I, just kind of tried to avoid because I was told that this album was full-on country. Now, 2 years later, again, back in Asking Alexandria, on May of 2019, Danny Worsnop then decided to release his second studio album, Shades of Blue, which once again, I reviewed this one when it came out last year, and it got a lot of negative feedback, which you'll probably see why in a second. A lot of people didn't really know what to expect, because even Danny Worsnop himself said expect the unexpected from this album. So it was like, well, is he still going to do the country from the last album, or what is he necessarily going to do here? Is he going to do something like Asking Alexandria self-titled by himself, or is this like a whole new endeavor? And it was once again a whole new endeavor. Now, the country's still present, but he lessened it to a degree. I mean, there is a song on there called Am I a Fool that you can definitely see could fit on his first album, but other than that, that I guess what I mean by the country is still present is that there's a lot of like that country twang that comes into play on it with the guitars and stuff that still shows up every so often, but he's not trying to do that weird whatever impression he was of country music singers. And he took more of a route of blues rock mixed with alt rock and indie, also throwing some jazz in there as well. It actually sounded a lot more soothing than his country album. And again, his singing is on par. This is the one where I think he really, really just shows that he has the chops. He's not going to sing the metalcore anymore most of the time. He still sings it live. I just don't think he ever wants to like make a full album like that again. But man, when he's not just screaming his lungs out, he actually has the vocal pitch. There's a lot of musicians out there that can scream their lungs out but cannot sing for shit. There's so, little musicians who can do that. Danny Worsnop is one of them who can also, along with his screaming, sing his heart out and do it very, very well. But I think the one complaint is that a lot of these songs have the same generic structure, leaving them sounding the same most of the time. Like it'll be the same guitar pluck or just this like little like samey beat here and there. It just, like I said, some of the songs you listen to them and you're like, didn't I just hear this song? But it would be a completely different song from the other one, and you're just very weirded out by it. But yeah, this one definitely had a lot more favorites of mine, however. Best Bad Habit is nice, Keep on Loving, and Heaven is a Long Way Down show off his vocal chops once again, and you definitely get more... I like to say that this one he was inspired a lot by that of maybe an Amy Winehouse, who you could picture doing something like this, or heck, a Joji song like that, especially with a song like Best Bad Habit, sounds a lot like it could be like Dancing in the Dark by Joji, although I think that song came out after this album, so maybe Joji got inspired by Danny Worsnop. Who knows? Other songs I found okay. The Kickoff, Little Did I Know, was alright, but it gets very repetitive. Tomorrow and Ain't Feeling Sorry. And the least favorites, like I said, Am I a Fool was just the return of the country sound, and even his vocals got a little bit to that imposter country that we've been talking about, and it was a turn-off. I've Been Down, Edge of Goodbye, Tell Her I Said Hey, and At the Time were, just ones I wasn't vibing with and didn't feel. However, my rating has gone up from my original review. Instead of a 4 out of 10, it is a 5 out of 10 now. I don't necessarily know what songs have grown on me, I just know that I went back into this thing and I went, it's not as bad as I made it out to be. It's very 50-50 at this point. It's definitely a big step up from his first solo album, when he just decided to be like, hey, I'm a English country metal head thing. Like, that was just, it's still super weird to this day what he was thinking with that. I don't know. And this left a lot of people speculating afterwards if he was going to make a third studio album, since, Asking Alexandria just released their 6th studio album, 7th, I believe. Yes, 7th, called Like a House on Fire, this past May. He confirmed here on Twitter, stating that there is going to be a Danny Worsnop 3, as he was asking fans who should be a female vocalist that I should work with on this song, stating that it is going to be a pop ballad, so don't freak out when he does a pop song, because good lord, he warned you already. Yeah, he basically said it is for DW3, confirming that it is happening. I mean, he's in quarantine at his house, and he's got this studio in his house, so of course he's going to work on music. And he does have 2 songs that he has released since March of 2020. One titled Happy, and then another one he made for his wife called Another You, so maybe we can expect those to be on this upcoming album along with this next song that he is making, whether he plans to release that one as a single or not. Yeah, I mean, that's basically where Danny Worsnop's at. So far in his solo career, he's tackled country, jazz, blues rock, alt rock, and indie rock during his solo career. And I guess I would expect a little bit of the same for this next album, because most recently, and he did a fantastic job with this, he covered Amy Winehouse's song, Back in Black.
We only said goodbye with words I've died 100 times.
And I would definitely think that, he would kind of take that realm and do that kind of thing. I think a lot of these songs are going to be softer and whatever, but these first 2 singles definitely feel like something that would have came off his previous album. My motive as to why he does this, again, it's a solo career. Just because he had a band around this time that was known for doing metalcore and being heavy as fuck at this point in time, or even when they release a self-titled still being, a rock band, doesn't mean he can't go out and go do a pop song or a country song here and there. It was just very weird that you see a guy who came from this late to mid 2000s, early 2010s emo scene, MySpace kind of wave doing this kind of stuff. But, you find some gems in there. Even if you're not a fan of the music that he is, making, the genres of the music, I can bet you listen to both of those albums, you will find something I like. I was even able to find something I like on his country album, and I don't even like country music overall, at least nowadays. As I mentioned, it's all samey, and you cannot tell the difference between who the fuck is singing at all, so if he could win me over with some things, he can definitely win you guys over with some things, especially the old school Asking Alexandria fans who aren't necessarily happy with what Asking Alexandria is doing now. I can definitely go out and say the same thing about their past 2 albums for those of you that are still stuck on the first 4. You will definitely find something you like on their past 2 albums. You just have to listen. You can't just doubt it from the 1 or 2 or 3 singles that you heard coming out of the album. Those are just some of the many tracks that are going to be on the album. You have to give the whole thing a chance before you can go judge it, and that's exactly what I did. I listened to these albums, judged them for myself, and now I know how exactly I feel. It's not my cup of tea, but if he releases something nowadays at least, I'll give it a listen just to kind of see if it's one of those songs that does make me go, oh, you know, this was good, I'll listen to it again. Or if it's one of those songs where I'm like, yeah, see, this is where he's getting back on that problem of being generic and too samey. It's just, it is what it is sometimes. So yeah, just remember that. Just because a band or artist comes from one popular scene in the music industry doesn't mean that when he leaves that band or decides to do a solo album in the middle of a band's, you know, album cycle or hiatus or whatever, and they do something completely different and out of left field, do not cry about it, because in the end it's their solo project, and I'd rather be able to tell the difference between their stuff and the band's stuff, because then you know what you're listening to, and you're like, oh, okay, if I want to hear more blues rock, I can listen to Danny Worsnop. If I want to hear more alt rock or metalcore, I can listen to Asking Alexandria. It's easy to just pinpoint and break apart, and you have no problem telling the difference. And like I said, sometimes you just get surprised like this, where you're like, I did not expect that from him or her, but it is what it is sometimes. It's a music industry. Sometimes people do it to sell out. Sometimes people do it just because it's what they want to do, and now they have full reign to do it. And by the way, I forgot to mention, his second album was released on Sumerian Records. Now that he's back in Asking Alexandria, I guess he has a deal signed with them as a solo artist as well, so you can expect this next solo album to also be released on Sumerian Records. But other than that, you guys can tell me in the comments below, what do you think? Have you heard his 2 albums? What do you think? Or even the 2 newest songs he has out at this point. What do you think of those? And what do you think his 3rd album is going to sound like? Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next one.